Good morning, it's Monday morning early, it's the 9th of September and I travelled over to Kilbeggan this morning to Dawn Meats shortly after 6 o'clock. Oh sorry, Kepak I'm told, Kepak. And I'm here with a group of farmers who are protesting outside Kepak, and they're going to chat to me and tell me why they're protesting. Before I chat to them, I just like you to go to my YouTube channel, please, and subscribe to it. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers, and that way I'll be able to go out live on the YouTube platform as well. And normally I have Deirdre with me to do the cameras, but Deirdre is not with me this morning, so the quality is not going to be as good as it normally is. So I'm going to turn this camera around and I'm going to chat to Jimmy first of all. So Jimmy, if I can get this camera to turn around.
Get me from the side.
Ah, there we are. Okay, Jimmy, what time did you come at this morning?
About 6:15.
If you just put the microphone up to your mouth.
6:15.
Now, and why are you here on the protest?
Basically, you're not getting enough for our animals to sustain us to live at the minute. That's the bottom line. You can only keep going for so long at the price we're getting them, and we're going out of business.
And so I know from looking at you that you've obviously been farming for many years. Is it any different now than it was, say, back in 2000 during the last protest?
Well, it's got to the stage that your back is fully to the wall. There's nowhere else for you to go. You're in farming, you're as long in farming as I am, and if you give up farming, there's nothing else you do. But you're not getting enough just to even break even, and break even will do nothing for anyone.
And do you see any future in it for you?
No.
No future?
No.
Absolutely no future?
You're going, the way as we're going right now, we'll go out of business slowly, because they're talking about reducing the suckler herd, which I do calf to beef, the whole lot. That's off a suckler herd. And what you'll wind up doing is selling off extra ones, so you have nothing left to sell. That's the way we're going. So now, for people who are not from a farming background, and I'll just explain that a little bit for them, you have what's called suckler cows, and suckler cows are bred to produce beef as opposed to dairy cows that produce milk. So normally the suckler man sells off the calves at around 9 months as weanlings that are bought by farmers who fatten them. But in your particular case, you don't actually sell the weanlings, you finish them out to beef. I finish them out,
yeah.
And I have Angus bull, and I have a Hereford bull.
Right.
To early fatten and at young age, a small stock.
So what you were actually saying to me then earlier is that you're at the stage that you're not getting enough for your cattle in the factory, and you're actually at the stage now where you're having to sell off your cows to make ends meet.
If the thing keeps going the way it is, the only way you can keep going is you have to sell off a certain number of stock.
Yes. Yes, it's just a tractor passing by. Yes, carry on.
You need so much money each year to pay all your bills and keep going. And the only way you can get money is you sell off your weanlings and your stores, and you still haven't enough of money, so you're going to be reduced in cows. Now you sell off a cow or two fat, and it'll be less cows every year you'll have, until your cows is gone at the way it's going.
So you're slowly
going out of business.
Slowly going out of business. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Jimmy. We move on now, and sorry, I've forgotten your name. I'm very bad at names. That's your microphone there. Sorry, what's your first name?
Pat.
Matt.
Pat.
Okay.
P-A-T.
Oh, Pat. Sorry, Pat. I'm a bit deaf.
Yeah.
So, Pat, why are you here this morning?
I'm here this morning because I have 2 youngsters in college.
Yes.
I have 2 youngsters in college, and I need money to keep them going and get them an education. I don't see a future for them in farming.
No future.
And the only hope that they have to become wealthy in the future and have houses and mortgages and continue in the system that we are in is that they get their education and they get jobs. They'll probably emigrate. They probably won't get jobs in this country. I don't expect that they will. But they need an education no matter where they go.
That's kind of a very, very sad prospect. Now, as we're speaking here this morning, talks are convening with the Minister for Agriculture, and represented at those talks is the IFA, the ICSA, that's the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association, and various other parties. What's your views on these talks now?
I don't expect a whole lot from Minister Creed.
Really?
Really. I met him before over the flooding in 3 or 4 years ago down at Lawn. He promised the sun, moon and stars. He gave us nothing.
So you're not hopeful of a
I'd have no time for Minister Creed.
You don't think there's going to be a successful outcome?
I think it'll drag on.
Now, one of the things that's cropping up as I go around the country and talk to farmers is this whole issue of grass-fed beef as opposed to beef that's coming out of the feedlots.
Yes.
So could you tell our listeners, many of them now are not from farming background, so could you explain this a little bit to them?
Well, I'll say what I can. I understand that the EPA have broadcast publicly that the cattle in this country nationwide have reduced the CO2 emissions by 7%. But on the other hand, Teagasc will proclaim that the beef are producing 30% of the CO2 emissions.
Right. Now, so could you explain the two distinctly different ways that beef is produced in this country?
Well, the two distinctly different ways of beef produced in this country is, one is ours, it's grass cattle, fed on the field and outwintered or inwintered and fed silage, and the beef factories have feedlots of up to 1 million cattle, and it's mostly grain based beef production, and it's imported from the South Americas, and they're burning the forests in South America now to produce more of the same, and it's detrimental to the CO2 emissions.
Right, so just to recap there for people that are listening, we have two distinct ways of producing beef in this country. The vast majority of family farms in this country produce beef that's grass-fed. The cattle graze outdoors most of the year, maybe for a short period during the winter, in which they're fed a grass-based diet, which is in the form of silage. They get little or no meal, and the beef that they produce is a very, very superior form of beef. But there are 600 feedlots now in the country, many of them controlled by the couple of beef barons that run and own the meat factories, and this type of beef is produced almost solely from grain that's brought in from South America, and the quality of that beef is not good, and it's been marketed abroad by Bord Bia as grass-fed beef, when in actual fact it's not. So how do you think farmers are going to get the message out there to the housewife that there are two distinct types of beef? One is a superior form of beef, the other is not as nutritious, and it's emanating from these feedlots?
Well, my opinion with the housewife is that the housewife is very familiar with the situation, and they will look for the proper beef when they go out to buy beef, and they will support their butchers. But the supermarkets are bluffing it to the extent that they're putting Irish grass-fed beef in wrappers, and it's actually feedlot beef that's in the wrappers. It's imported beef and it's feedlot beef, and it's just not the grass-fed beef that we have been producing down the years. And it's somewhat similar to the dog industry. We all know about puppy farms, and I compared the puppy farms to the beef feedlots as against ordinary people who have dogs and pets, and they have other little puppies and the whole lot of it.
Yes.
They're minded, they're loved. We love our cattle out in the farm, I think you'll all agree.
Yes.
My brother has cattle down the road there, and he pats them on the head and they all have names. He produces the weanlings, he sells them on. Top class cattle, out in the field, outwintered. Bord Bia produces a report every year, and if we don't concur to the restrictions of the Bord Bia, our cattle are not taken by the factory, and if they're tested and they have antibiotics in them, they're put into skip. And we proceed to produce good grass cattle, and we're competing now with the feedlots and the imported cattle, and it's an issue for us to make a living.
Right.
We can't survive on promises of subsidies. Subsidies are being reduced every year. I dare say my subsidy has been halved in the last 10 years. we're just scraping along. We haven't much money. We're all driving 00s and 00s and 03 vehicles and whatnot, and we just tip along, and we're not rich out of it. We're just continuing to live and rear our families.